English Made Easy podcast.
From Easy English with Class.
Have you ever been in a conversation? Maybe you're feeling really confident, the words are flowing, your accent is on point, and then you say something that sounds perfectly logical, like, I need to make my homework.
Oh, yes.
And suddenly the vibe it changes. You see that little flicker of confusion in their eyes.
It's not that they don't understand you, it's just that something is, off.
Exactly. Something is off.
It's the linguistic equivalent of walking into a room with your shoes on the wrong feet. I mean, it functions, you can walk.
Right. You get from A to B.
But everyone knows it's not quite right. And that sentence, I made my homework, that is the classic tell. It's the hallmark of a non-native speaker.
It is. And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into one of the most, deceptively simple, yet utterly frustrating choices in English. Make versus do.
It sounds so basic, doesn't it? I mean, these are probably two of the first verbs you ever learn. But as we went through the research for this, it became so clear that this is a huge stumbling block for learners at almost every level.
You have to choose between them constantly.
Dozens of times a day, and the rules seem to change with the situation. It feels arbitrary.
It feels like the rules are written in invisible ink. But we have good news. We've got through a massive stack of language materials, focusing specifically on the logic native speakers use, and we think we can solve this permanently.
That's the goal. We want to move you from guessing and that little panic you feel when you have to speak fast to just choosing automatically. We're looking for that native speaker shortcut.
Bridging that gap between translated English and natural English.
Exactly.
So let's get into it. The mission today is to stop you from ever saying, I made my homework again. But to do that, we have to get to the core concept. Why do we even have two verbs for this?
This is where it all starts. If you look at the source material, the fundamental difference comes down to the logic of creation versus completion.
Creation versus completion. That sounds almost philosophical. Break that down for us.
Well, let's start with why it's so hard. In many languages, Spanish, French, Portuguese, there's often a single superverb that covers both ideas.
Like hacer in Spanish or faire in French.
Exactly. Those words cover both making and doing. So if you're a speaker of one of those languages, your brain has one file folder for action.
Right. But English forces you to split that folder into two separate drawers.
Correct. And if you try to translate directly from your superverb, English, it punishes you for it. But if we look at the English mindset, make is all about creating or producing.
Bringing something new into the world.
Yes, something that didn't exist before you started the action.
Okay, so make is about the result. I really like the analogy in the notes about baking.
It's the perfect example. Think about a cake. Before you start, you've just got flour, eggs, sugar.
Raw materials.
Exactly. You perform the action, you mix it, bake it, and at the end, you have a physical object, a cake. You created it, you produced it.
Therefore, you make a cake.
You make a cake.
That makes total sense. You're building something. Now let's flip it to do.
Do is about performing or completing an activity or a task. It's focused on the action itself, the job, not so much the physical result.
So it's process-oriented.
Very much so.
This is where that checklist analogy comes in.
Exactly. If make is baking the cake, do is the checklist of things you need to finish. You don't create your homework.
Your teacher did that.
Right, the homework already exists. Your job is just to complete the task. So you do your homework.
That is a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
You don't build the homework from scratch like a cake. You just execute it.
Precisely. And that's why I made my homework sound so strange. It sounds like you sat down and wrote the questions yourself.
Which would be much easier, honestly, but that's not how school works. So, okay, we have the basic rule. Make equals create, do equals action. But we all know English loves to break its own rules.
It does. But before we get to the tricky exceptions, we need a tool you can use in real time. The sources provided what I'm calling a cheat code.
I love a good cheat code. How does it work?
It's a two-question strategy. When you're about to speak and you hit that make-do fork in the road, you ask yourself two quick questions.
Okay.
Question 1, am I creating something new? Is there a tangible result?
And if the answer is yes, you use make.
Right. Question 2, am I doing a general action, a task, or a duty?
If yes, you use do.
It's a simple filter, but it works for, I'd say, the vast majority of cases. It stops you from translating and forces you to think about the nature of the action.
Okay, I want to test this. Let's run some scenarios from our sources through the filter. Let's start with breakfast.
Okay. Am I creating something new? Yes, I'm taking eggs, toast, coffee beans, and producing a meal.
It wasn't there before.
So you make breakfast.
Nice. What about the laundry?
Am I creating the laundry? No, sadly, the laundry creates itself.
Oh,
Am I doing a task? Yes, it's a chore, a maintenance activity. So you do the laundry.
Okay, how about a phone call?
Yeah.
This one feels a bit ambiguous.
Now this is where it gets interesting. We say, make a phone call.
Wait, how are you creating a phone call? You're not building a telephone.
In a sense, you are. You're initiating a connection that wasn't there. You're producing the event of the call. But this is also a great example of a fixed phrase or a collocation.
Okay.
Sometimes, even if the logic is a little fuzzy, English just locks a phrase in place. But the creation filter mostly works here. You are causing the call to exist.
Okay, so creating versus completing is our baseline. But let's go deeper. The sources break this down into specific worlds. Let's step into the world of do first. This seems like the world of maintenance and grind.
It really is. I mean, if you look at the common phrases with do, they are almost all about keeping your life running. Household stuff.
Like do housework.
Do the dishes. Do the ironing.
And that fits the rule perfectly. You aren't creating the dishes unless you're a potter.
Right.
You're just washing them. You're completing the cleaning task.
Exactly. And notice the feeling of those words. They're repetitive. You do them, and then tomorrow you have to do them all over again. It's maintenance.
And this extends to work and school, too. We've got do homework. We can also do research.
That's a good one to flag because research feels like you're creating knowledge.
Right.
But linguistically, research is treated as an activity. It's the process of looking, reading, gathering.
So the final report you write at the end of that.
You make the report,
Yeah.
you create the document, but the gathering of the info, you do the research.
That distinction is so key.
Yeah.
Do is the grunt work. Make is the result.
Exactly. You also do a job or do a task. It's very functional.
There's another big category for do, and that's the body. Exercise.
Yes. Do exercise. Again, it's an activity. But the sources point out a very common synonym here that native speakers love.
Which is?
Workout. While do exercise is correct, you'll very often hear, I need to work out.
Yeah, that sounds supernatural. But if you stick in the verb, it's always do exercise, never.
Never make exercise. Please don't say make exercise.
What would that even mean?
It sounds like you're inventing a new sport in your garage. I made a new exercise. I call it sit jump.
I would play sit jump. But yes, unless you are inventing it, you are doing it.
And there's one final category for do that's really important, and that's performance, how you handle an action.
This is like when you ask someone how an interview went.
Right. You don't ask what they made. You ask about their performance. I did well. I did badly.
Or the advice we give everyone, do your best.
That's a perfect example. Best isn't a physical object. It's a level of effort. You are performing at your highest level.
So to summarize the world of do, it's chores, work tasks, maintenance, and how well you perform them.
That's it in a nutshell.
Okay, let's leave the world of chores because, frankly, I hate doing the dishes, and enter the world of make. This feels more creative.
It is the world of results. And the most obvious application here is food and drink. We touched on this, but it's the clearest role. Make a cake, make dinner, make coffee. If you're in the kitchen and you aren't washing up, you're probably making something.
But this is where it gets tricky. The sources highlight a section on collocations. These are those fixed phrases you mentioned.
Yes.
Phrases where the logic of creation isn't physical, but English treats it that way anyway.
This is the hurdle for intermediate learners. You have to expand your definition of create. Let's take the phrase, make a decision.
Make a decision. Okay, I'm not building a decision out of bricks. Why is it make?
Think of it as a construct. You have options A, B, and C. You process them, you deliberate, and you formulate a choice. You have produced a result.
Okay.
The English language treats a decision as something you have built in your mind.
That helps. It's not physical, but it's a new thing that exists. What about make a plan?
Same logic. You are strategizing. You're constructing a path forward. So you make a plan. You don't do a plan because you aren't executing it yet. You're designing it.
I see. So making a plan is the design phase.
And doing the plan would be the execution, though we'd usually just say executing the plan. But sticking to the source list, we also have make an appointment.
For a doctor or a haircut?
Right. You're carving out a slot in time. You're creating a meeting on the calendar.
So you make an appointment.
Yes. And then there's the social side. Make friends.
I love this one. You definitely don't do friends. That sounds very odd.
Let's avoid the implications of that one.
Agreed.
You make friends because you are building a connection. You're creating a relationship. It implies effort, construction of a bond.
That's a great way to frame it. It makes those abstract phrases feel more concrete. There are a few results-based ones in the notes, too. Make money.
Yes, earning. You generate income. You make money. You don't do money unless you're a counterfeiter, I suppose.
Let's assume our listeners are not.
A safe assumption.
What about make a mess?
The opposite of cleaning. If your kids go into the kitchen, they create disorder. They make a mess. It's a negative creation, but they definitely produced it.
And make a mistake.
This creates an error. Again, a negative creation, but you still produced it.
I think make a mistake is one of the hardest ones because do a mistake feels like it should be right.
It does.
I did something wrong.
And I did something wrong is correct because something is vague, but mistake is the specific noun, the result of your error. So you make that mistake.
And hopefully after this deep dive, you'll make progress.
Exactly. Moving forward, generating improvement.
Okay, we've got the rules, the lists, but lists are hard to memorize. I think the best way to lock this in is to see them in action, colliding in a single day. The sources had these great narrative scenes.
Let's do it. Context is everything.
Okay, scene 1, the morning routine. You wake up, the alarm goes off, you stumble to the kitchen, first thing.
You need caffeine. So you make coffee, you're brewing it, creation.
Then you go back to your room, you look at the messy bed.
You make your bed. Now pause here. This is one of those fixed phrase exceptions. You aren't building the bed frame.
Right, you're just tidying it.
But we always say, make the bed.
Why is that?
Historically, beds were like piles of straw or feathers you literally had to make up and shape every night. The language just stuck.
That's fascinating. Okay, so make coffee, make the bed. Then you see the sink full of plates from last night.
You do the dishes? It's a chore. It's a task.
So the morning is make coffee, make the bed, do the dishes.
Creation, historical exception, and cleaning.
Scene 2, the work or study session. You sit down at your desk.
You start by doing your homework or doing a task. Pure execution.
You need information for a project.
You do research. You're gathering data.
And then you have to choose a topic for that project.
You make a decision. You formulate your choice.
Scene 3, planning the weekend. It's Friday. You want to be social.
First, you make a plan. You design your weekend.
You need a haircut before you go out.
You make an appointment, schedule the time.
And you go to a party where you don't know anyone.
Hopefully you make friends, you build new connections. Seeing them in context really, really helps. It's not just random words. It's about the intention of that moment. Are you building or are you maintaining?
Exactly. And once you start noticing these patterns in your own day, it becomes much harder to mix them up.
However, old habits die hard. The sources have a specific list called the Stop Saying This list.
Ah, yes.
These are the rapid-fire corrections for the most common errors. I'm going to throw the mistake at you, and I want you to correct it like a grammar judge.
I am ready. Let's clean this up.
Mistake number 1. I have to make homework.
Incorrect. You do homework. It is a task, not a creation.
Mistake number 2. I am going to do a cake.
Please don't. You make a cake. You are baking it. Doing a cake sounds weirdly aggressive.
It really does. Mistake number 3. I need to do a decision.
No. You make a decision. It's a fixed phrase. You are building a choice. And mistake number 4, this is a big one. I need to make exercise.
Incorrect. You do exercise, or if you want to sound really natural, you work out.
That make exercise one is so common. I think it's because in other languages, you make sport.
That's right. But in English, it just sounds like you're constructing gym equipment in your living room.
Which would be cool, but not what you mean.
Not at all.
So we've covered the logic, the cheat code, the daily scenarios, the pitfalls. But I want to circle back to the mental game the sources mentioned.
Yes, the create it or complete it mantra.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can just keep that in your head, create it or complete it, you're going to be right 90% of the time.
And for that other 10%, the fixed phrases like make a decision or make a mistake, it really just comes down to exposure. The expert in the source makes a great point. Don't stress about memorizing a dictionary.
No.
These are chunks of language.
Chunks, I like that word.
It's a linguistic term. A chunk is a group of words that they hang out together. The more you hear make a decision together, the more do a decision will just sound wrong to you.
It's about training your ear, not just your brain.
Precisely. It's like a song lyric. If you sing the wrong word in your favorite song, you know it instantly. The rhythm is off.
You don't need to analyze the grammar, you just feel it.
You just know it sounds wrong. You want these phrases to become like song lyrics in your mind.
Which brings us to our listener challenge.
Yep.
We don't want you to just listen and nod along. We want you to apply this.
Right. The source suggests a really simple daily practice. At the end of your day, or even right now in your head, describe your day using one specific sentence structure. Today I did task and I made creation.
Give us an example.
Today I did the dishes and I made a plan.
Or, today I did my homework and I made coffee.
Today I did the laundry and I made a mistake.
Honest, I like it. It forces you to contrast the two verbs in a single thought.
And if you do that every day for a week, you won't just know the rule, you'll start to feel the difference. And that's the key. You want to get to the point where make homework sounds like nails on a chalkboard.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means that English is logical, but it's also quirky. You have the create versus complete tool now. You have the cheat code. But the real secret is just noticing.
Pay attention. When you watch a movie or read a book, don't just follow the plot. Listen to the verbs. Notice when they use make and when they use do. You'll start to see that creation logic everywhere.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Because you can't do mistakes, you have to make them to learn.
Oh, I see what you did there. A very nice callback.
I try my best.
Well, that is it for this deep dive into the world of make and do. We hope you feel a little more equipped to build your sentences and complete your conversations.
Keep practicing those chunks. Make a plan. Do your best.
And we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening.